Hey everybody, welcome to Dad's Den of Pop Culture. Alpha Flight Monday. Alpha Flight number 34. And say, that's a nice looking Mignola cover. Wolverine, Vindicator atop a crag fighting off a horde of samurai with Lady Deathstrike looking on. This continues last issue where we had a little bit of a crossover with the X-Men, but primarily with Wolverine. And we're learning even a little bit more about his origins and how Heather and her husband, her deceased husband, Mac, were involved in discovering him as a wild man in the northern woods of Canada and sort of bringing him back to his humanity. And at the end of that story, they were surrounded by Lady Deathstrike and her warriors. Now, if you will recollect from last issue, Heather has just taken on this persona of Vindicator, using a battle suit more or less like the one her husband had designed and wore as Guardian. And she's been the leader of Alpha Flight, but she had no superpowers, and this was a problem for her. She felt oftentimes useless, like she needed to be right there in the field, commanding, and she couldn't do it. So she's got the suit. She was after Puck to train her in fighting, because she knows that she is not a trained combatant. Puck didn't want to do it. Puck has very deep feelings for her. And so she left to get that training from somebody else. And he realized that somebody else had to be Wolverine, because he knows of the connections there. So we now open this issue, by the way. Bill Mantlo, writer, Sal Buscema, storyteller, Jerry Taliak, finisher, Janice Chang, letterer, Bob Sharon, colorer, Carl Potts, editor, Jim Shooter, editor-in-chief. We open with Puck in one of their Omni ships, heading off to find Heather, going to the X-Men mansion, or school, I guess I should say. And so we have a little bit of dialogue where he's kind of explaining what's going on for those who maybe missed the issue before or who had forgotten. But he's radioing back to Alpha Flight what he's doing. And at Mansion Alpha, he is being received by Box, by Madison Jeffries, by Aurora, by North Star. I'm generally a fan of Buscema's art, Sal Buscema's art. I'm not in love with his rendition here of Box. It's not necessarily technically incorrect, but it doesn't work as well for me as it usually does. So, Puck is continuing here. He says, the only other person alive that Heather would turn to for training Mr. Jeffries, now that she's adopted the costume and powers of her late husband, Guardian. I'm talking about one of the original members of Alpha Flight, a man who used to be called Weapon X, Wolverine. And Box there says, I'm tracking Puck and Heather as they vector in on New York, both heading for the X-Men. But at the speeds they're flying, there's no way I could overtake them. You couldn't, Sharebox, but North Star could, should he choose to. I do not. Heather Hudson was named team leader because her husband founded Alpha Flight. It was a gesture of sympathy only. Since then, her powerlessness has nearly gotten us all killed. So, running theme, North Star's kind of a jerk. He's not entirely wrong, though, here either. That is somewhat true. I, for one, am glad she has gone, so that a true leader can take her place. Jean-Paul, because you are my brother, I have made allowances for your callousness. No longer. Your cruelty towards Heather shows me that you are incapable of loving anyone but yourself. Not true, Aurora. I love you, and would die for you should such a sacrifice prove necessary. I would rather, North Star, that you learn to live for others. Dum, dum, dum. Okay, so Puck then says, don't follow me, Alpha. Oh, don't follow me, Alpha, eh? Finding Heather is something I've got to do on my own. Living with the pain of being trapped in this absurd dwarvish body, I can almost bear. But living without Heather, I cannot. Which is kind of odd because, well, I don't know. Maybe he's worried about her, turning permanently to Wolverine, but she's not a mutant, so she's not going to be joining the X-Men or anything. So, I would think that he would know that she's going to come back. So, at any rate, and they know that Puck is in love with Heather. This is a problem. Madison Jeffries points out that Roger Box has been phased into the robot for quite a while. He needs to get out of there because there can be issues with him staying in too long. And then they hear an intruder alert. Some unauthorized soul has set foot upon Tamarind Island. Stay put, Alphans. I'll check it out. And who ends up at the door but Doug Thompson of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police and his wife, Snowbird, who is having some issues. And when she turns to look at them, she says, shaman. And you see her face. So what is going on here? Well, what's going on here, to some degree, is the beginning of the next storyline. And speaking of shaman, so shaman, Michael II Youngman, is suffering a crisis of faith, a crisis of confidence. He has been blamed by his daughter, Elizabeth, who became Talisman. She had blamed him for the death of her mother. Not really his fault. But she also blames him for her becoming Talisman. Not entirely his fault. And for her almost dying a couple issues back. Not entirely his fault. But maybe a little bit of his fault. And he's realizing maybe I have not been a very good father, that I have put her in harm's way. And so he's lost his ability to perform magic because his own confidence, his own faith was integral to that. And he is now seeking help. And he has found it with the spirit of his grandfather. And so here we're getting kind of a summing up of what is going on. And so he's gone on this pilgrimage. I needed to know whether any power existed within me rather than in some bag of tricks. You once understood that the magics of your medicine pouch were of your own conjuring, plucked from some other realm as the need arose. That realm almost took my daughter. I must be free of it. Have I no power of my own? To determine that, you must be tested, grandson, by the spirits attending this place of power. Walk forth, Michael II Youngman, out across the barren lands, following the cairns raised by your Sarsi ancestors in the dark long ago. The trail will lead you to power or death. But shaman is not the only one seeking power, and so once again, we turn our attention to Wolverine and Vindicator. And they're speaking Japanese here. Lady, you just accused me of being some kind of thief. In my book, those are fighting words. She was Yosemite Sam. The worst thing you could say. Though the truth may be hard to bear for a man of honor, Wolverine, son, it is nevertheless the truth. I repeat, you possess misappropriated power. That which was stolen must now be returned. And if I could turn this page, I'd be doing pretty good. Wolverine, what language are you two speaking? Japanese? Did you learn it after you left Alpha Flight? Who is this woman? Why is she threatening you? What does she want? I can't give you any answers before I found out myself, babe. My friend wants me to introduce you, lady, only I don't think I caught the name. I am Lady Deathstrike, come to avenge the honor of my father and my clan. And you know who I am? By reputation only. From what little information is available, I recall hearing that you were once an operative of the Canadian Secret Service, and that now you are one of the outlaw hero X-Men. Also, you are the betrothed of Lady Mariko of Clan Yashida. Sounds like you know about as much as I do. So this is referring back to the Wolverine miniseries, a very good one. Clan Yashida is second only to the Emperor of Japan himself in power. Yup. Though Clan Yashida would rest at nothing until your death was avenged, and though I did not expect to find you in possession of that which was stolen from my father, honor compels me to reclaim it. This despite the threat of future retribution, and whether or not you had anything to do with it. Yeah, honor. That I can understand. Logan, you're getting ready to fight her. What does she want? For your companion's sake, Wolverine-san, that she may recount the reason for your death to such as may inquire, I will explain in her language that I have come to recover the fruits of a scientific experiment conducted by my father, stolen from his laboratory over a decade ago, and implanted into a human subject. In short, Wolverine-son, I claim your adamantium skeleton. You've come to take my bones. Yeah, Wolvie's pretty tough, but I'm almost positive he's not going to survive without his skeletal structure. So that lets us know what's going on. We now get the background story of how all of this happened. We get Daredevil in there. Part of this recounts Daredevil issues 196 to 200. And so we're not going to go through all that. But basically, this goes back to World War II. It involves Bullseye. Here we go. A soldier of the Empire, he believed, must be strong in both body and mind. In his quest for the ultimate warrior, he turned to science, inventing a process for bonding to brittle human bone the very rare, near-invincible metal called adamantium. Then his formula was stolen. He never knew by whom. It took him precious decades to reinvent the process, only to die after seeing it successfully restore the paralyzed Bullseye. Having at last understood what drove my father, I who had slain him came to embrace his goal of restoring our homeland's honor through the creation of an army of super soldiers. But that secret died with Darkwind. To recover it, I knew I should have to find one who has benefited from it. That meant tracking Bullseye via his adamantium implant. To my surprise, Wolverine-san, that search instead led me to you. You're saying that whoever stole your daddy's process used it on me? Oh, Lord, it can't be, but now I remember seeing something. Back when I was secretary to my husband, James MacDonald Hudson, so basically she saw a report on the process of bonding adamantium to the human skeletal structure, a translation from the Japanese. Wow, that's a little bit convenient that she just happens to remember a folder that is really well explained right on the cover. I would have probably written that more like her overhearing a conversation about it rather than seeing that folder. A year later, Mac and I discovered Logan roaming the hill country, a raving wild man, whom it later appeared had been reduced to that state by the shock of having his bones bonded with adamantium. But what if our finding him wasn't accidental? What if Mac knew he'd be there and chose this spot for our honeymoon, hoping we'd find his creation, or that he'd find us? When Logan attacked, was it out of hunger or out of hatred for the man who made him a monster? And when Mac left me alone in that pain, with that pain-maddened wild man, was that part of some secret experiment too? Did Mac really ski away to get help? Or did he deliberately abandon his blushing new bride with Wolverine to see if beauty could calm the killer beast? So she's having some pretty big doubts about her husband, which I think comes on a little bit strong here. That happens a lot in movies and TV and stuff. Oftentimes there's that trope where somebody disguised as Batman and Robin rob a bank, and all of Gotham City, even though Batman and Robin have saved them 1,000,000 times, suddenly go, they're criminals now. They must be caught. Instead of going, hey, this could be a trick. So she turns on Mac a little bit hard there, in my opinion. I don't know. I think that could have maybe been handled a little bit better. I see what they're doing, lacing in some doubts, but I don't know. That one goes to me a little bit too far. Dear heaven, if Mac did use Logan to me like that, what kind of a husband was he? What kind of a friend? If Logan had known, he might have killed Mac and proclaimed his love for me. Would I have had him? Maybe, if I'd known what Mac had done to us both. Okay, yeah, I mean, this one's getting laid on a little bit thick, in my opinion. I think this could have been done a little bit more neatly, maybe not quite as dramatic as that all of a sudden. So Wolverine's basically telling Lady Deathstrike to pound sand and saying, all right, if you want my skeleton, you're going to have to kill me. You up to it? Yes, Wolverine-san, I do. No one's going to cut Logan open and hurt him again. Heather, keep out of this. It's my fight. No, it's not, Wolverine. It's ours. One will fight together. So that maybe I, wearing my husband's battlesuit, can use it to save my husband's creation. Electromagnetic force bursts crackle. And, this ties in also to the time of the mystery of Wolverine and how he was created and who was responsible. Because it wasn't known yet at this point in comic books. So I see where it's like, oh, well, here's a possibility. Let's throw it out there to deepen that particular mystery. I don't know. I think it could have been handled better. Sometimes these comics, they condense quite a bit, and so they have to move quickly. That feels like a little bit too quick a move. Because I haven't seen... If Heather had already seen a few examples that her husband was maybe lying about things, and I'm trying to remember if she had or hadn't, I don't think... Nothing major. I'll put it that way. Nothing major. If there had already been some hints like that, I could see where she'd be like, hey, he might have done something terrible to Wolverine. Here, I would have rather seen her go, could Mac have had something to do with that? No, probably not. But, just to pique her interest. And that could itself be a bigger storyline moving ahead. And I think they do move in that direction with Heather and Mac, that her husband may not have been everything she thought that he was. At any rate, we now get a battle with Heather using her, what do they call them? Electromagnetic force bursts. I was going to call it repulsor rays. Whoops. I was going to call them repulsor rays like Iron Man, but I guess they're not technically that. So in come the samurai, and Snick Slash doesn't go super well for this guy. So lesson one, you probably shouldn't run straight at Wolverine. He's a little bit too tough for that. Wolverine could have disemboweled his attacker, but he retracted his claws enough at the last second to incapacitate him. He's not the killer Mac tried to make him, and he's teaching me that when you possess power, you've got to exercise restraint. Good going, babe, but now it's time to take to the trees. Why? We have nothing to fear from Deathstrike's forces. Yeah, but you've seen how many they've got. You've seen how much they've got to fear from us. Want to take the chance on hurting them when maybe we can ditch them? No, then split. This is an interesting attitude coming from Wolverine, because he's not always that nice, and I wonder if part of it's because Heather is there that he wants to spare her seeing exactly what he can do. And so we basically get Wolvie and Heather fighting these guys through the woods as they track them and haunt them. And so all along, she's learning a little bit about combat, obviously, and some other lessons, but also that Wolverine is trying to protect her, and that's definitely a sort of a triggering thing for her because obviously Puck was trying to protect her. And she's sort of like saying, look, I'm trying to become a genuine superhero. I don't want protection. Stop protecting me. Now, is that the most wise thing in the world? Maybe at this point it's not, because she's not very skilled yet at this stuff. But, she's definitely got the will to get it done. But again, I think the biggest problem I have with this one is her suspicions of Mac and how quickly they arise at only a small amount of information that frankly was not well conveyed. The folder was kind of goofy. I'll say that again. I'm striking out to save Wolverine. I'm striking out at Mac's memory. For months I've mourned that louse. No, hating him now is too simple. He was a good man. Okay, good. She's coming to her senses a little. It's just that I see now that he sometimes forgot when being a hero ended and being a husband began. We have found you, thief. Been called that once tonight already. I don't like it coming from Deathstrike. Oh, I didn't like it coming from Deathstrike. You neither. His claws cut deeper than he had intended. He recognizes the anger seething within him as preceding that more berserker state where he cannot control his bloodlust. You shattered the swords of my samurai as if they were brittle ice, but you will find mine was forged in fire. Wolverine growls, and here, the new universe. It all begins this summer. It sadly does not go that well. It was a bold attempt, but it did not work out quite as they wanted. So meanwhile, Heather is kind of going on this. She's still thinking about Mac a bit. Mac designed this battlesuit's force shields to withstand attack by ultra-modern weaponry, thus they should have no trouble deflecting those samurai weapons. How did Deathstrike ever hope to subdue Wolverine with such anachronistic arms? Or even her original target, Bullseye? Well, her strategic error is advantage. That one's a little bit, you can see the word bubble was destroyed by her swooping by. Unless maybe her henchmen are here to divert me while the true battle takes place elsewhere. And that would assume she knew that Heather was going to be there, which frankly, I don't think she would. You see, Wolverine, son, my blade, like your claw, does not break. Adamantium, lady? No, but electromagnetically tempered. There is no other blade like it. It was another invention of my father's. How fitting, then, that I shall reclaim that which you stole from him. And there you see her. She slices through a tree. I know trees are always getting the brunt of this stuff when people want to show off. In old swashbuckling movies, it was a candle. In superhero books, you got to slice a tree in half. I told the X-Men to stay out of this. Now I wish they were here to hold me back. Each time Deathstrike calls me thief, I want to kill. That'd be the honorable way to clear my name. It's what I'd like to do. But it ain't the X-Men's way. So Wolvie's trying to behave himself. I don't know how much longer he's going to. And about that moment, Puck arrives in the Omni-ship. And he knows that they're somewhere below him, and he sees what's going on. And you see him flying in. Lady Deathstrike sees it coming, but gives no sign. Wolverine does not, and Puck, zeroing in on the sword's electromagnetic impulses, recognizes the former Alphen. Too late. Whoa! So he slams the thing right into Wolverine. So basically it was dark, and he didn't realize who it was, and he thought the electromagnetic impulses were Heather. So he slams into Wolverine, and she rips out the aircraft as it's moving past, which works in a comic book. It's a little tougher in real life because people don't realize how fast aircraft are moving. Most of them anyways. Ejected just in time. But what dreadful damage have I done? The Omni-ship goes down with a crash, and Heather hears that. Wolverine, you won't practice vivisection while Vindicator is around, witch. You're even more powerful than at first I thought, woman, but my armor bore the brunt of your assault. You wear none, I see. Will your costume protect you against my metal-slicing sword? Try me, Deathstrike. Truth be told, she could probably just shoot her with them blasty things until she went down. I shall. Heather, that blade's souped up so it's as hard as my adamantium claws. Get back, Heather. Do you want her to do to you what she did to our omni-ship, eh? Puck, it was you that conked my adamantium skull. Yeah, that's another one. This is not one of my favorite issues at this point, I'll be honest. The speed that thing would have to be coming in. Okay, maybe, Wolvie can survive it because of his adamantium skull. But that kind of hit is going to scramble his brains. He's going to be out. Even his healing factor going to maybe save him. He ain't going to be out for just 5 minutes. I mean, you got to think in terms of the mass of that vehicle and the speed it was going. That's a little off in my opinion. He should have been down and out. My apologies, Wolverine. It was dark. I like that. Sorry about hitting you in the head with an airplane. It was dark. She hits Heather with the sword, and it shatters on her force field. My father's sword. You shattered it. The battlesuit's electromagnetic shields did, Wolverine. I guess Mac built better than Lord Darkwind. He always did. Well, gentlemen, you've seen what Vindicator can do. Do you still want to offer me your protection? Look at him. We're sorry. All right. Here we have a little teaser for what we're going to be seeing next. They are still pursuing her. Not all the North Atlantic, it seems, can keep them from her. And Marina is tiring. Her speed is down to less than 100 knots, about 80 miles per hour. Then also there is the pain. As Marina's body betrays her, her pursuers net their prey. The vessel is Atlantean. Reel her in. Hearing that harsh command, the Alphan abandons all hope that he who chased her was her once beloved Prince Namor. The scuttlefish has been placed in a holding tank, my lord. Have her guarded well, as befits a special prisoner of Atuma, warlord of Atlantis. So, we're picking up the Marina storyline from way back when, which last ended with her having gone savage because of being introduced to a mate from her alien species and her sort of letting people think she was dead as she got away. Okay. Alpha Flight, number 34. Not my favorite issue. I don't think there's anything plot-wise in the issue per se. Overall, the plot is fine. A test of battle with Heather, seeing what the battlesuit can do, seeing her ability to control it, Wolverine and Puck. But, I mean, part of the point is, please train me, and then 5 minutes later, hey, I'm doing great, and you guys should be ashamed of yourselves for thinking I couldn't fight. Well, lady, you didn't think you could fight, last issue. That was kind of the point. And also the way she turns on the memory of Mac so quickly, and even though she sort of says, no, he was a good man, but maybe even that, I don't know, that's a little off to me. It doesn't feel in character, quite in character, with the Heather that we've seen in the past 33 issues. And then the thing with Puck hitting Wolverine in the head with an airplane. Not Matlow's best work, in my opinion. I think you could have smoothed most of that out. Wolverine could have been knocked unconscious for a while, and it wouldn't have hurt the story. Heather could have had some suspicions. Maybe Mac was involved. It didn't have to go as far as it did. She also doesn't have to be, quite that sassy at the end to the two guys that she was seeking out for combat training. I mean, they weren't just trying to protect her. They knew that she was not skilled in this kind of stuff and didn't have very much experience. So, a little bit forced on this one. But they're trying to introduce this new character. I get it. it could have been done a little bit better. What say all of you on this one? I'd love to hear in the comments what you think of this issue. If you enjoyed this review, please think about giving it a like. And if you've enjoyed Alpha Flight Mondays or you want to look more into it, you might want to think about subscribing to this channel. Maybe share with a friend who's an Alpha Flight fan. I am going through Alpha Flight from issue 1. I started that, I believe, on January 1st, taking it to issue number 52. And then next year, I'm going to be switching to Justice League International Mondays. So we're going to do 52 issues of Alpha Flight. One of my favorite series, one of the books that I collected when I started getting into comic books back in the mid-'80s as a kid. So, until next time, folks, God bless everybody. Please be kind to one another. Have a little bit of fun out there, and I'll see you again soon, hopefully, in Dad's Den of Pop Culture. Bye-bye.